We are live to you, coming from Keeler Gardens. This is Gina. You can always reach me at gina@keelergardens.org. I'm here today in the shade garden because we're really focusing on this beautiful space with our new intern, Ayanna. So Ayanna was so gracious and said that she would speak a little bit about who she is and where she's from while we talk to you today about our new interns here at Keeler Gardens. Ayanna, tell us a bit about why you're here.
My name is Ayanna. I'm from Latin School of Chicago. Just started my sophomore year this fall, and today I joined the internship for Keeler Gardens. So far, she's really shown me a tour of the garden. It was very nice, and everything's so luscious and green. I'm gonna start with Keeler.
All right, so what she's got there, her little cheat sheet, which is excellent. What we've been working on with our new horticulture intern here, in this unique situation, because many of our interns are remote this year. Ayanna has been willing to work with us with proper distancing, and because we're outside and it's just the two of us. She's here on site learning a lot of horticulture details. So what we're doing with our interns is getting her acclimated to the space with our standard operating procedure. So we have a list of things that we teach at the beginning. We've taken her for a tour around and we've gone over this list repeatedly to get her familiar. So she's going to pull the first thing off the list that we teach our interns.
Okay, the first thing that we went over was keeping weeding.
So in this area here, one of the reasons why we picked this area is because it doesn't have a lot of weeds, and we're very proud of that. But what we're teaching our interns is to go through every space that they own, that they manage, and look for weeds every day. So I'll show you down here. See that little guy growing with the big wide leaf hanging over the stone? That might be a weed. So we would pluck that out. One of the important things about weeding is you need to know what's a weed and what belongs. So for example, see this little yellow guy? That's actually heuchera. But he looks small and we're not sure, you know, like if a new horticultural intern was here, they might think that was a weed and they might pluck it. So we have to educate on what's a weed and what's not. What's next, Ayanna?
The next thing we learned is water.
Okay, so watering. Now, this is a shade space, so watering is relatively easy in this space. We don't really have to worry a lot about things getting under or overwatered. It's very natural, it takes care of itself. But there are some areas in the garden that are really exposed to a lot of sun, and that's where we're very careful. We have an above ground watering system, and we're going to educate the interns on that process too. Okay, next.
Right next is we have overgrown.
So when things get overgrown, we have to control how they bump into each other. See how these guys are touching? We have a hellebore here, and then we have the pieris here. These guys might have to be thinned out a little just to make sure that they're not overgrown. But we've actually taken care of this space already once earlier this season, so it's really quite lovely. All right, what's next?
Next we learned about splitting.
So splitting is in combination with something being overgrown. If it's too big or it doesn't belong there, you can literally cut it in half, dig some out. If you look, this plant here is called a stilbe with the red leaves. It's a red leaf astilbe. It was getting a little overgrown, popping out in places it didn't belong. So when we dug it up, we split it and then we transplanted it into this pot, which I believe is that our next topic? Transplanting. So that's when we move plants around from one area to another. Okay, what's next? This is a very important topic that we teach our interns about. Annuals versus perennials. So we have a really good example here. Wave, Ayanna, as I come across. All right, so this container has annuals. These guys will be beautiful all summer. Actually, these guys, our impatiens, will be beautiful all summer. The pansies are more of a spring. If it gets too hot, they will fade away and then the impatiens will take over. But these guys will not come back next year. No matter where you put them or what you do with them, they will not come back unless for some reason they have seeded themselves. But the roots will die. It gets too cold. But if we go over here to our fairy garden, we made a little fairy garden in this pot, okay? This is campanula. This is astilbe. This is juniper. This is hellebore. This is... Okay, that one is questionable. That's feverfew. This is Rose of Sharon. This is moss. Okay, all of those plants are perennial, meaning in our temperature, they can manage over the winter, generally. But we educate on what does and does not work. And we often do tests, like this is the first year for this fairy garden. We'll see what comes back next year. So that's the difference between annual and perennial. What's next on the list?
Do we have containers versus...
Which are leads right from. So that's a container. This is in ground. So, as we mentioned, these are all perennials, as is all of this that you see here. And all of this comes back pretty substantially every year. Now, this perennial, but in a container. So, will it come back? We don't know. So we have to pay attention to that. Also, containers tend to dry out faster than the ground, depending on where you are in a garden space, because it's less soil and it evaporates out faster. So that's another thing that you have to manage and monitor. So that's the difference between a container and in the ground. All right, next. Okay, so deadheading, let's see. Here. So this is very interesting. Now, technically this isn't deadheading because the flowers are already gone. This is actually a modified leaf. But if we were sort of tired of this and see we're getting a little done like this, we would cut right where the flower is. And that's called deadheading. Now on some, not on hellebore, but on some plants, if you deadhead, you promote more growth, like roses, for example. Okay? Now pruning is different. Pruning is really cutting for shape. So like this piers, so like for example, this guy's getting a little tall. We might cut that down, prune it, thin it out. This guy's getting a little dense. We want to look at the beautiful bark. We might prune to remove some of that, to limit up. So pruning and deadheading are similar and related, but also different. All right, what's next?
Finally, we have structures.
Okay, so always we have to check for garbage. Now, I sadly say that, but garbage is going to happen. If you look all the way back, you'll see there's a path that goes out to the alley. And of course the front is exposed to the street and the public. So we do see garbage periodically and we'll clean that up. And then any structures in a space is anything that's not growing. So for example, Ayanna is sitting in these comfortable chairs. Periodically we address, do the chairs need to be repainted? Do they need to be moved? We look here at the fire pit. Does it need to be moved? Does it need to be emptied? So this is the process by which we educate all of our interns on the step-by-step. They each get an area to work on that they choose, and they go through all these steps on a regular basis to maintain the space. So thank you, Ayanna, for being our star today. And as we pan around, just to give you a few shots of the garden, we just want to remind you who we are. Keeler Gardens on the north side of Chicago on Keeler Avenue. You can walk by the front gardens anytime, open 24/7, enjoy the pollinator habitat, call out to the community cats. Right now the rear space is reserved simply because we have to control the number of people, but we certainly can talk. I'm going to just pan over this way a little because we have a cute kitty sleeping on a chair. We have lots of programs. We're doing things mostly virtually right now to bring them to you via these Facebook videos. We're going to put Scout on camera so she can be cute. And we want to make sure you know that we are here for you to connect you with nature, to improve your health and well-being. Our website's going to go, going to be much more substantial very soon. And I'm Gina at KeelerGardens.org. Ed is Ed at KeelerGardens.com for the educational side. And I wish we had a scout at KeelerGardens.org so she could get her own emails. Maybe we should do that. And then, of course, think of us when you hear of any grants or sponsorship opportunities, or anyone who wants to donate their time or volunteer. So thank you for sticking around. And with that, you get the hashtag #StickAroundSpecial. So we have something interesting to offer you today about bird feeders. I'm going to show you a couple back here without blinding you with the sun. So there's can you see that? Let me get closer. It's right there-ish. I don't know if you can see it. That's a bird feeder. All right? And we have a couple of these around and about. One of which you might have seen in the background by where Ayanna was sitting. She's going to be petting Scout right now, giving her the attention she's owed. But I'm going to walk you back over and take you to where see the red in the background, back in this area? That's also a bird feeder. You just put a little bit of bird seed in the bottom. One of the things that we do sometimes in the summer is we encourage the birds to eat naturally. We don't fill the bird feeders in the summer. They make beautiful accents. The birds are encouraged to use the natural environment because we do have the pollinator habitat and a lot of other options for them. And then in the winter, we do fill the bird feeders when they need food. Now, we do have cats here, so I will warn people, if you have cats or if you have other predatory animals, make sure your placement of your bird feeders is safe, okay? But as a thought, maybe get the birds working a little harder in the summer, but make sure that they're cared for in the winter. And also, in the winter, when the trees aren't full and when things are a little emptier and clearer, you hang your bird feeders in areas that right now would be blocked by, like if you look at this tree, would be blocked by leaves. But in the winter, we could hang a bird feeder in there, and from our kitchen window, we could enjoy those birds. So another little extra something for you. Thanks so much for joining us and for sticking around. I think that's it. Please leave comments, leave us messages, come visit us. We would love to see you, teach you, share with you, and happy to go into any detail that you're interested in. So thanks so much for joining us.